Now, the thing about putting up bean sticks or sweet pea support is to get a brace that way as well as that way. I'm sorry, I've got a mouthful of string. Welcome to Gardener's World. I'm putting up my sweet pea support because not only do I like the architecture, I like the process of crafting it together, and you have this sort of naked hull that's going to be clothed with the flowers later in the year, but also because it's a statement of intent. It's really saying, yeah, okay, spring's been miserable, but we shall have sweet peas. This week, Carol is looking at Wordsworth's favourite flower, and that's not daffodils, but celandines. And as well as growing wild throughout the countryside, she's discovering some marvellous garden varieties.
Look at that one there. Is that not lovely?
It's truly beautiful.
I love agapanthus, but have some problems growing them here at Longmeadow. But we visit an expert grower in Essex who shares the secrets and tips of his success.
They're at their best in the sunshine, and they seem to follow it, which just makes me feel good.
And I shall be planting my potatoes at last, and also planting up my new herb garden. Now, last week at Wisley, I saw the Alpine house. I confess I've never really been terribly interested in Alpines. I've always thought of them as a little bit over fussy and prissy and outdated. Well, I was wrong. I was so wrong, because they're fascinating and they're jewel-like and intense. You can use just a small pot. You've got sempervivums like this, which are completely happy. And of course, they'll grow on a roof, they'll grow anywhere. So that's a really easy, good way to start. Or you can get an alpine pan. You can find a sink. This is just simply an old sink that we've had lying around for years. I'm going to plant that up. Or if you're really going to town, you can get a stone trough. Now, I intend to do them all. I want to build up a modest collection of alpines and really get into them. But I'm going to start with the alpine pan. And this, of course, has a great advantage. You can move it around. You can put it in the sun. You can protect it in winter, because alpines really don't like winter wet. To get the conditions they like, you must first of all get the drainage. So to cover those drainage holes with some crocks, and then create the right compost. So equal parts grit and compost. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this is our normal potting mix that we mix up ourselves, but you can use any potting compost that is peat-free. So we'll have 4 handfuls of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mix it up. And really, grit is the answer for this. If you think of the scree and those mountainous slopes, the water just runs straight through. Now we'll put some in. Now, these plants are modest in so much that they're relatively easy to grow, but beautiful. Of course, one of the nice things about alpines is, though they feel very precious, they're actually relatively cheap to buy. So you can make a little garden for very little money. Now, this is a saxifrage. This is a Piculata alba. And you can see these lovely white flowers flowering in spring on a little cushion. As the flowers die back, the cushion will spread a bit, and then next spring there'll be more flowers, I hope. Standing a little bit proud, but that won't matter because I'm going to top it up with grit. And although these are tiny plants, remember they're really tough. They're really strong, can take any amount of cold or wind, won't bother them at all. It's wet that they really hate most. And then another saxifrage, and this is Caspar Maria Sternberg. And again, delicate little white flowers, and the pincushion is almost like moss. And even I, with my terrible eyesight, can see just the intricacies of that. And when you're thinking of placing it, the pan or the trough or whatever it is needs to be up, raised up, so you can look in and enjoy them for what they are. So we'll pop this in there. Not too close, Give them room to grow and room to breathe. Now, I want to add in a couple of sedums. The one factor all sedums share is sharp drainage and full sun. Otherwise, they get too floppy. Now, this is sedum acre, which is a really minuscule version. It's got little bright, intense yellow flowers, almost like a sort of tiny little euphorbia. And that yellow and the green of the foliage will pick up on the flowers around it. And now I've got another type of sedum with purple and slightly glaucous foliage. This is Capablanca. I like the backstory of alpines in British horticulture. It really stems from the Victorian age, when you get reading parties and well-educated, vigorous young men used to go for long walks in the Alps and came across these amazing plants. And is directly connected to a discovery of the Alps themselves. And that's really why they're called alpines, because they come from many, many different regions. Finally, I'm putting in a sempervivum. This is Arachnoides. It's called that because they're little filaments. Can you see the little spidery filaments in between the petals there? And this will pick up the colour of that purpley hue. And we'll pop this in here. And that can slowly spread and tip around the edge. Now, it looks a bit sparse at the moment, but that's plenty, and I'm going to top dress that with grit to round it off. Now, I don't want to cover up the mounds. Now, all these plants will cope with full sun, but not necessarily baking sun. So if, by any freakish bit of good luck, we get a really hot summer, I can move this pan into a slightly more shaded area. And that's why it's quite good to start growing alpines with a relatively small container that you can move. Well, there we are. It's a modest beginning of this new phase of alpine growing that I'm just entering into, but it's exciting. It's really good. Now, these are all small, delicate plants that we're nurturing and treating with kid gloves. But Carol is looking at a small, beautiful plant that doesn't need treating with kid gloves at all. It's rampant.
This is the celandine, Ranunculus vicaria. It's a member of the buttercup family. It has to have the most brilliant yellow petals of any of our wild flowers. When the sun shines, it opens up, showing this beautiful lustre and polish. It really has to be the very smiliest of all plants. You see celandines all over the show. They love damp ditches and hedgerows, but you never see them individually on their own. They're always in great carpets, huge swathes as they are in this churchyard. When the sun shines, the whole ground is aglow with their brilliant yellow flowers. But when it goes behind a cloud, the petals close together, protecting the inner workings of a flower. Celandines look right at home in the wild, but many gardeners see them as an unwelcome invader. Well, I've been digging up celandines, with the vicar's permission, of course. But you're hardly going to notice because there are just so many of them here. That's the thing about celandines, they're just so good at making more. They do it in two ways. First of all, by setting seed, but also by the distribution of these little roots, these rhizomes. These are storage organs for the plant. And each one is capable of making a brand new plant. Well, none of us would really want to introduce the wild celandine into our plots. But I love the lustre and that gorgeous shininess that they bring to the early spring garden. Unfortunately, there are lots of cultivated cousins that all of us would welcome into our gardens. Bob Brown of Cotswold Garden Flowers has spent more than 20 years collecting and growing plants from all over the world. He's gathered together over 10,000 plants, and amongst his collection is a dazzling array of celandines. So, have you always loved celandines, Bob?
Yeah, I think so. Even as a kid, I remember thinking they were fantastic plants. And then when you become a gardener, they're so good because they just look after themselves.
Yeah.
They're not robbing some plant of light or air or water. They just do their thing, cheer us up, and then they're gone. So what's the problem?
This one's lovely. I mean, which one is it, Bob?
This is Floriplena, and it's more or less where it is, where I planted it, because it's the double one. And the thing about the double one is all the stamens and the stigma, all the sexual bits have turned into petals, so it can't reproduce itself.
I love the way they sparkle everywhere, don't they?
Yeah. Anything that's showing fresh and colourful is just amazing.
Full of optimism.
Full of optimism.
I mean, they're wonderful in the ground, but even if you haven't got a garden, you can still grow them in pots, can't you, and enjoy them?
You can. This is Hyde Hall. I like this one because it has these dark leaves, but just look at the colour on the back of the mature flowers, because they're actually blue. They start by being grey and then they turn this wonderful blue.
And it is so attractive.
I think this is my favourite for foliage.
For foliage?
For foliage.
Yeah.
They're all slightly different. I think they're all seedlings. So I think you could call them a swarm.
A swarm.
A swarm.
A swarm of celandines.
A swarm of celandines.
A new collective noun.
That's right. Look at that one there. Is that not
It is
lovely?
It's truly beautiful. I think this has to be my favourite of all these special celandines. It's Ranunculus vicariate brazen hussy, and it was found by Christopher Lloyd, famous gardener, in the woods surrounding Great Dixter where he lived and gardened. He brought it back home, and since then it's been an extremely popular plant amongst gardeners. But you might say, well, it's still a celandine, but why not try this? What I do is to dig a hole and put in the plant, pot and all. If it's single, I need to deadhead it when it's finished flowering so it doesn't set seed. But afterwards, I can either let it die down there or take out the pot and substitute it for something else. For most people, the yellow flower of spring is the daffodil. But for me, the exquisite, glossy little stars of our wild celandine simply can't be surpassed. It's easy to see why this beautiful little gem was William Wordsworth's favourite wildflower.
Funnily enough, I've had a letter about celandines just this week. It's from Maurice Packham in Horsham. Now, Maurice says, I'm completely baffled as to how it proliferates. How did it get from our front garden over the roof of our bungalow and into the back? Well, you might well ask Maurice, because I know from this garden it does spread everywhere. When I started making this garden, I didn't see lesser celandine anywhere at all. And now it has run right through the garden. Mainly borne by the flooding. And where the flooding is worst, you can see it. I mean, if you look here under the hedge, you can see a really healthy, vigorous clump of celandine. And that's because the floodwater has brought in debris, and this is collected up around the trunks of the hedging plants. Haven't been able to get at it. Now, obviously, we mow the rest of the area and we weed borders where we've got strawberries growing, and that keeps it under control, but I can't get in there. Now, the thing to remember about celandine is it is a plant that does best in damp, slightly shady conditions. So if you can moderate your conditions and expose it to full sun and really good drainage, that will do a lot of good. It doesn't like that at all. It likes the wet. But if you can't control that, and I can't in this garden, then I think all you can do is keep on top of it, keep it where it's not doing most damage, enjoy the good things about it, and tolerate the worst. Now, you may not be worrying about celandine, but here are some jobs you can be doing in your garden this weekend. This is the time of year when slugs and snails really can get into their stride and cause havoc. Now, I prefer prevention rather than cure by keeping all my most vulnerable plants in one area. Aha! And then I make sure the slugs can't get into that spot. Check through your plants daily, and especially go through all pots, trays and plugs, collecting up any slugs you find, and then destroy them as you see fit. If you sow any member of the cucurbit family now, they'll be ready to plant out when the nights are getting warmer at the beginning of June. And the cucurbit family includes courgettes, melons, cucumbers, squashes and pumpkins. These are all flat seeds, so sow them on edge, either one to a large plug or two for a 3-inch pot, and then remove the weaker of the two once they've both established. They will need some warmth in order to germinate, so put them somewhere where it's reliably 20 degrees or above. If your soil doesn't feel cold to touch, then you can plant your potatoes. Make a trench 6 to 9 inches deep, adding a layer of compost to the bottom of it. Place the seed potatoes about a foot apart in this trench. Draw the soil back to create a ridge over the tubers. Allow at least 3 foot between ridges so there's plenty of room for earthing up over the coming months. And hopefully you'll be celebrating with your first dish of new potatoes at some stage in July. Well, I guess along with anyone else who's got a greenhouse, it's still crammed with tender plants. You haven't risked putting them out. But I'm just starting to go through them and hardening them off. And the agapanthus amongst the first to brave the weather. You can see this here. Label long lost, I can't remember which variety it is. Still, it's a good blue, that I do know. And the new growth is just beginning to appear. Now, popping it out here on a west-facing sheltered spot should be protection enough, but I can put it back in the greenhouse if it gets really nasty. And just a bit of a water. Don't need to feed it at this stage because the water will trigger it into growth. And of course, the growth is spectacular. That burst of blue, which is perfect for the jewel garden, and that's where it will end up. But if I try and grow them in the borders, it's hopeless. Our soil is far too wet, heavy and cold, and it just will rot away and comes to nothing. But over in Essex, Michael Deadman has got much better growing conditions and a fabulous collection of agapanthus. And last summer, we went along to see them in their full glory.
I go for blue. It's the blue of the sky, which I like. Blue's my favourite colour. They're at their best in the sunshine, and they seem to follow it. It's a lovely structured plant, which just makes me feel good. Bear in mind we're in a dry area of England, Essex being the driest county. Shoeburyness here is probably one of the driest places. So we thought the agapanthus would be an ideal plant. It gives the colour that I like, and our ground conditions here are not clay, it's mainly sandy subsoil. Heavy soil will often kill agapanthus if they're waterlogged. And those that we do have in the ground come up every year, even some of them being evergreen, which are less hardy than the deciduous varieties.
skies smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies do I see.
One or two have been developed in recent years. Queen Mum, for example, has got that whiteness, and you've got this hint of blue coming through from the start of the trumpet.
Nothing but blue skies do I see.
Mood Indigo is quite new to my collection. As it opens from one side only, and then just springs open, and it isn't too bold, but the colour itself does it all. And as I said to my wife, we needed more of these darker shades. People who come and visit our garden under the National Garden Scheme like the darker varieties. Phantom is very interesting. It has a delicate colour, and I think it's one of the varieties that really wouldn't withstand a very cold winter. But they've been in the garden, in the northeast corner of the garden, for about 4 or 5 years, because the wind and sun direction is mainly from the southwest in that particular part of the garden, and it keeps them warm. It's not that stressful. I mean, you know, they're all locked up in the greenhouse, so to speak, in the winter months, but I still tend to them. I give them a little water every now and again. The feeding really starts in the springtime, and I feed roughly once a month if they're in a pot, and then I go around occasionally where we have agapanthus in the garden and just give them a dressing of chicken manure. The slow-release granules are very handy to use, especially in pots. The watering is important, and I think more water they do have in the growing season is quite important. If you don't water them, I just feel they hold back and they won't produce successive flowers. We've been successful at having our garden open days, and we've raised good money for local charities through the National Garden Scheme. That really stimulates me more and more. This year, for the first time, I've got my own hybrids which are just self-seeded in a rose bed. I want to see how they develop over the next year or two. But by growing more and more, and then selling some of these on, I'm sharing my desire and delight at growing these plants. So hopefully I'll be growing them for a good number of years and we'll have more in the collection.
Nothing but blue skies from now on.
Oh, it's so nice to see some summer colour. Now, we've grown herbs here at Longmeadow from day one, and with some success, but it's never really gone to plan, and that's a combination of two things. One, the situation, and two, the soil. This is really heavy, fertile soil, and herbs don't like that. So, 4 new beds specifically for herbs, and I've tailored them to adapt to different kinds of herbs. So you can see here, I've left this to show you a bed that is designed for Mediterranean herbs. I'm talking about thyme, rosemary, sage, marjoram. And I've got stones, we've got crocks, really, really stony subsoil, and then the topsoil on top has got masses of grit. This is about as poor as soil can be and still be a bed. And that's the same underneath there. So 2 beds side by side, expressly for Mediterranean culinary herbs. And knowing I was going to do this, last year I took some cuttings which I overwintered in the other greenhouse.
I had my life to live over. I do the same thing over again. Baby, I'm always wrong to that place they call home. That my happiness will never end.
Up this here, that's a good point. Now these are fairly large plants now, really healthy, and the smell is just lovely, lovely. So you can hear the grittiness of it. There we go. course, really soft, fresh thyme is wonderful in any dish that you cook with tomato, oil. That oily Mediterranean taste needs time to come to fruition. The thing you have to remember with thyme, more than any other herb, is it will not tolerate shade at all. So even shade from neighbouring plants is not very good for it. So what I'll do with the next layer is stagger them. So I'll get one in here, like that, and then one here. So the next ones, I'm going to put in a little rosemary cuttings that I took. You can see are nice and healthy. And these, of course, will grow up a little bit taller, but they won't be great big bushy plants because I'll keep cutting them for the kitchen. But like thyme, rosemary will grow in remarkably poor conditions as long as it's got sunshine. Right. Now I'm going to put in the sage plants, also taken as cuttings at the same point. This is narrow leaf sage, which I think is the best for cooking with. There are lots of different types of sage, and I will be adding some more. But narrow leaf seems to have the most intense taste without being overpowering. And one of my favourite dishes is simply pasta with butter and sage. And you just stir the butter into the cooked pasta with a generous quantity of these fairly small sage leaves. Mix it up with some pepper and maybe a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and it's absolutely delicious and so easy to grow, really. Well, that's my homegrown herbs planted, which is a start, and I'll get the rest in, and of course I'll add to them. Buy more, sow more, take more cuttings, and build up a really good working culinary herb garden in the ideal situation. Don't forget one thing, that if you have any plants that need really good drainage, be they Mediterranean herbs or alpines in a pot, they still need water. It's just that they hate the water sitting in the soil. They like it to pass through. So don't forget to water these plants in. Well, that's good and exciting. I've started growing alpines, I've started a new herb garden, and the sun's shining. Let's hope it lasts till next week. See you then. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, it doesn't just feel like spring here at Longmeadow, it's starting to look like spring too. And here in the copse, the wood anemones have really spread. They don't seem to have minded the cold weather we had at all. And I love the way that certain plants that you begin to get used to having a certain place in the garden and a certain volume suddenly really take off. We've got the dog's tooth violet coming. What have you got in there? You've got a ball. Nigel's got a ball, all's well with the world, and we've got a cracking programme coming up. This week, Carol will be in her own garden, planting and celebrating that exotic woodland gem, the trillium.
Can you imagine what those first European plant hunters must have felt when they came across it, growing in great swathes?
And behind an ordinary front door, Joe discovers an extraordinary garden.
This suburb has been completely shut out and a whole different world's been created.
And I shall be planting a grapevine, which is the first that I've planted here at Longmeadow in 20 years. I'll also be introducing quite a big change to the old vegetable garden and trying to sort out the algae in my pond. Now, in what was the ornamental vegetable garden, I'm making a real change. And this is a conscious decision as a result of fresh ideas and also fresh circumstances. Now, when we first made this garden, the idea was to grow as much veg in here as possible. We crammed it right round the year and we ate everything from it. But gradually, it's got a little bit more ornamental. The box hedges have got more mature. I brought the yews in. And also, as my children have grown up and left home, we just need less food. This year, I'm going to fill the space equally with flowers and veg. And the idea is to recreate the spirit of a cottage garden, where flowers, fruit and vegetables jumble and jostle together with equal importance. Now, I've made a start here. This bed, which up till now has only ever grown things that are edible, I've got roses planted in here, and they're all chosen for their softness of colour. So they're lovely, blousy flowers. They only appear once in midsummer, and then they move on. So I can complement plant it. Now, what you plant in a cottage garden dictates how you plant it. This is a foxglove, digitalis. Perfect plant for this style of gardening because it has a looseness, it appears all over the countryside, not exotic, not fancy, but absolutely lovely. And also are really good at growing in odd little corners and spaces. So I'm going to put them along the back. This particular variety of foxglove is called Excelsior. They're dead easy to grow from seed, but they are biennials. So sow the seed now, and they will flower next year, not this year. And of course, the colour scheme is important. I think of cottage gardening as having a softness of colour. We have lemon yellows rather than hard yellows, mauves, lilacs. But again, no hard and fast rules. Do what feels right, do what feels spontaneous, make it up as you go along. Okay, get those in the ground. I put up these hazel bean sticks last week, and their support for sweet peas. I put a barrow load of compost underneath them, which the sweet peas will really benefit from. So I've got this channel of really rich soil. Now, in the spirit of the cottage garden, I don't want to waste that. So as it will take at least a month or two for the sweet peas to get established, I might as well sow into that soil, take my harvest, and then I can remove it before it interferes and competes with the sweet peas. And radish are the perfect, quick vegetable. Delicious, too. These are just simple radish, and I'm going to broadcast them. I'm not going to sow them in lines. Radish seed are nice and big, so they're easy to handle and to sow. And I will just sprinkle these on the ground, and those first fresh, hot radish with a pat of butter is the ideal combination. Rake those in, partially to cover them and to spread them. And on a day like today, I don't even need to water them because it's going to guaranteed to rain before the day is out. We've already had quite a few showers. That's it, dead simple. But the dead simplicity is the key to cottage garden. Easy plants, bits and pieces that people give you, that you grow yourself, that you take as cuttings, and gradually it accumulates around you. And it's a very British thing. But Carol is looking at a plant that is not British. In fact, I'd say it was distinctly exotic.
On the edge of a path on the woodland side of my garden is an intriguing plant that just draws you in. This is Trillium pluripetalum. It has a strange, almost sinister sort of air. Can you imagine what those first European plant hunters must have felt when they came across it growing in great swathes in the forests of America? Tri is the Latin prefix for three, and everything about trilliums is in threes. There are 3 petals, 3 sepals, and 3 leaves. Well, these handsome clumps of Trillium chloropetalum have been in the garden for quite some time. They're many years old. But unlike a lot of woodland plants that spread themselves around things like wood anemones and woodruff, just under the surface of the soil, trilliums tend to stay in one place. And as these dark, exquisite flowers begin to fade, they're replaced by a round, spherical seed pod. And gradually it gets heavier and heavier until eventually it's carried down to the ground. And at that point, slugs and snails and ants move in and feast on the coating of the seeds. Of course, I always try and get in there first, but very often I miss. Where these seed heads have tumbled to the ground, they're replaced by these lovely little clumps of seedlings. And then I can dig them up and carry them off. Just in that small clump there, probably from one seed head, I've got scores of seedlings here. And so the idea is to separate them all off, and each one will have its own seed leaf, just a single leaf, the beginnings of a rhizome and a bit of true root. Since I've so many of them, I'm just going to use this module. So each one has its own space, and then I'll try and keep them under the same sort of conditions that the trillium grows in, and they'll stay in here for at least a year and then get potted on. It's not until they're about 3 or 4 years old that you see the actual formation of these 3 leaves, and a couple of years after that when they actually begin to flower. So you've got to be fairly patient, but it's so worth waiting for. It was way back in the 18th century that trilliums were first introduced into our gardening repertoire by intrepid plant hunters. Francis Masson, the Scot, was the very first plant hunter appointed by Kew. And imagine his amazement and delight when he found on a trip to the northeast of the Americas a pure white trillium, Trillium grandiflorum. Now, this is the first time I've planted Trillium grandiflorum in my garden. What a treat. But before I put it in, I really must make sure that this soil is perfect for it. So I'm just going to bung in a whole load of my best leaf mould, first of all. And then the other thing is, because it's got really big developed root system, look at that already in a pot. I want to make sure that those roots can delve down there. So I'm going to dig a nice substantial hole deep down into the ground. That should do. And now, the moment of truth. I think it's going to absolutely love living here. I hope that eventually it might set seed and I might see for myself a similar scene to that where it grows in the States. They call it wake robin because it carpets the floor at exactly the same time as a robin starts to sing. In this really special little corner, it's the kind of entrance to the woodlandy bit of my garden, I want to plant another white trillium. It's this one. It's Trillium albidum, and it's just got this beautiful perfume. It's almost like roses. It's glorious. All the trilliums we've looked at are from the Americas. There are lots more, and we haven't even touched on the Asiatic species. And every single one has something special to recommend it. But it's true to say that without the efforts of valiant plant hunters like Masson, we probably wouldn't have any of these to grace our gardens. They really do bring something extra special. They lift gardening in the shade to whole new heights.
Now, I've got some problems with this pond. As you can see, it's completely covered in algae. In fact, I'm not the only one, because I've got a letter here. It's from Mrs. Margaret Howell in Stroud. After 20 more years of having a wonderful pond, full of wildlife and newts, my pond is now a disaster area, says Margaret. And I'd really appreciate some help and advice. Last year, the dreaded blanket weed took hold. So I tried a chemical algae and blanket weed control, and initially this seemed to work. However, the weed is back, and the pond just looks dead. So can you please help? Probably can, I think, Margaret, so hang on. Now, algae is more or less inevitable sooner or later in most ponds. That's because the combination of warm water, light, and nutrients will provide the ideal conditions for these incredibly successful plants. Now, my pond is absolutely covered in it, and that's mainly because it floods. This winter, the flood came in, covered the whole area, and brought with it lots of living and dead material. And decomposing material will release nutrients, and that feeds the algae, particularly as it warms up. So the first thing to do with any pond at this time of year is to clear it out. And to do that, I need to get the kit on. Right. So the first thing we can do at this stage is get rid of all the dead leaves and gunge from winter. And just scoop gently. Quite important not to be too violent, because there may well be frog spawn or tadpoles in the water. I've definitely got some over on the far side. This will all go on the compost heap perfectly well. There's only so much you can do from the bank. I think I need to get in. Oh, look what I scooped up in there. A frog. Right, there he goes. Go on, froggy, go a-wooing. In you go. Lovely. Of course, the principles of this are exactly the same whether you've got a little tub or barrel filled with water or you've got a great big lake. Now, I want to introduce an element that will help control the algae. It's completely non-invasive and non-chemical and will do no harm to any creature at all. Now, this magic ingredient is simply straw. Barley straw, like this. Now, you can buy it ready prepared, and you just put that into a small pond, you just chuck it onto the surface, and it will do its stuff perfectly well. That would be ideal for a pond about 1 metre or so square. You can get it in small bags like this, and again, it will float on the surface. And the way that it works is very simple. As it breaks down, it releases a chemical which inhibits the growth of the algae. There are just two provisos. The first is this happens slowly. Absolutely nothing will happen for at least 2 weeks. In other words, the algae may well get worse in that period. Be patient. Then as the water and the heat of the water and the barley start to decompose it, then the action happens. And that could take 6 weeks to begin, but it will last for up to 6 months. And it's very effective. Now, putting it in the pond. So you could use, this is an old carrot sack. That would work perfectly well. In the past, I've used tights for this job, and they do the job just as well too. And you just stuff them in. So you need to put in approximately 50 grams of straw to every square metre of the pond. It doesn't matter how deep it is, it's the surface area that counts. And I think that's about the right sort of amount. Now, I'm just going to add a stone to weight these down. They won't sink under the water, it'll just submerge them a little, because it's the combination of the wet and the straw that will create a decomposition process. Okay, here we go. Well, it's not a thing of great beauty, but it doesn't look too bad, and it will gradually decompose. And as it does so, the algae should be held at bay. Now, you may not have a pond at all, and if you do have a pond, you may not wish to chuck a paratites stuffed with barley straw into it. But here are some other things you can be doing this weekend. Now the soil is starting to warm up, it's time to sow carrots, and these have to be sown direct, preferably in soil that hasn't been freshly manured. You can either sow them in single rows or broadcast them, but either way, try and do so thinly. Rake the seeds in lightly, water them, and then just leave them to grow. If you sowed sweet peas as I did in the middle of March, they should now be growing well. However, to encourage stronger, bushier plants, it's a good idea to pinch out the tips, and this will encourage side shoots, which in turn will mean more flowers. If you have dahlias growing in pots, they will now be showing signs of growth, and the strongest of these makes good cutting material. Choose 1 or 2 shoots per plant and cut them off as close to the tuber as you can with a sharp knife. Remove the lower leaves and then fit them round the edge of a pot that you've filled with a very free-draining compost mix. Give them a drink and put them somewhere warm. Now, Joe is going to visit a garden in Swansea, and it really is quite exceptional. Remarkable garden, although you wouldn't know it from the outside.
It's just an ordinary street in Swansea. But behind these houses, I'm told there's a very special garden. Now, this is not a garden of colour, it's a garden of structure, and it very much plays to the Welsh climate, if you know what I mean. I think it's in here. Okay, I've already got choices which way I want to go. Let's go around this way. Lovely clipped view. Wow, wow. I'll never expect to see this at all. I've just come down some lane and now I'm in, I don't know, this sort of world of topiary and rooms, division, formality. Fantastic. I love these formal hedges and that view just drawing the eye all the way through there. It's amazing. It's as if suburbia's been completely shut out and a whole different world's been created.
This garden is a work of graphic designer Tony Riddler. It's been built around his office at the back of his terraced house. It's taken him 25 years to create this extraordinary space, and it shows what can be done with just 1/3 of an acre.
I love your garden. How did you come up with this plan?
Well, there was no plan. When I first came here, I had wibbly-wobbly paths everywhere, lots of flowers, plants everywhere, all colours, all shapes, all sizes, all varieties. I had the lot, I wanted everything, like a sweet shop. And I had the therapy and calmed down and simplified and pared back.
I'm amazed that you didn't sit down with it and draw the whole thing out, because it feels like it's a sort of jigsaw where every piece is locked together, and if one piece was out of place, it wouldn't quite work.
It's evolved over the years. So I started off with a small area just on the side here. And as confidence grew and funds became available, I branched further and further into the space.
The real joy of Tony's garden is that you can just keep on exploring, discovering view after view. You can see his designer's eye at work, and there are lots of sculptural elements to appreciate.
I'm back here. I love your topiary chickens.
Yes, they're Art Deco hens. You know.
Art Deco hens, of course. And do you do all the clipping yourself in this garden?
Yes,
It's a lot of work. That's days and days of clipping.
It is days and days of clipping. I can't hide it, yes. But I quite like being on my own, clipping away.
Have you done that?
Very so.
You did that?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
This is my Sputnik.
You can see Tony's sense of humour at every turn. The garden is packed with visual jokes. There are false doors, trompe-l'oeil and sculptures drawing you on, encouraging you to enjoy the journey.
What you've done especially well is bring it up to eye level. I think a common mistake with sculpture in the garden is to buy something from the garden centre or you know, a lovely piece like that, find it, and then just plonk it down below eye level, where here you put it on a huge pedestal.
Often they need to be raised. They have more clout, they have more influence.
Yeah.
They have more presence, certainly.
You created a complete oasis. You would never have dreamed that you're in the... Oh! Hello, who's there?
Evan, is that you? Evan?
Yes,
You coming in?
I'm in the hay.
And this is not just fabulous to look at, it's a perfect playground too. As Tony's grandchildren are happy to demonstrate.
I think what Tony's achieved here is truly inspirational. It's quirky, it's fun, but it's also beautifully designed and shows you just what you can do in a small space.
It's well loved and well used, and what better way to wear out the grandchildren?
Now, Tony's garden is open this Sunday under the National Garden Scheme, so if you're in the area, do go along and have a look. Now, I'm clutching what looks like a pretty bare twig, but this is really exciting. This is a grapevine. It's called Black Hamburg, and it produces the most delicious dessert grapes. And I want it to grow here in my new greenhouse. You can imagine the whole of this north-facing window, this slope, dripping with great bunches of delicious grapes. Now, of course, I could plant it in the soil. This grit just is covering dirt, and it will grow perfectly well. But if I planted it outside, it will grow much better, because grapes have really extensive roots. They can reach 30, 40 feet. And if you give it room to grow, it will get all the moisture and the feed it needs. By having this hole here, it means that if I plant the roots just outside the wall and train the vine itself through that hole and into the greenhouse, the roots can grow out this way. Now, vines are greedy plants. They also need very good drainage. So I'm going to boost the drainage. And to do this, I need a hole big enough for the vine and a generous layer of cobbles. Of course, you could use anything for this: bricks, tiles, or even broken terracotta pots. And I also suggest that unless you have very free-draining soil, I would add a bag of grit to the earth before you backfill. The vine has been grafted onto a rootstock, and this wax seals the rootstock. And obviously that must be kept well above soil level. And let's just take the cane out. Now, it's worth remembering that vines are tough plants. Cold won't damage this at all. In fact, it will do it good. They need some cold in winter. So you can do this outside in any garden. It's the ripening of the grapes that needs a bit of heat. And dessert grapes need quite a lot of heat, but there's plenty of wine grapes that don't need that much. So choose your variety carefully, wherever you're going to grow it, and choose your spot carefully. And as a rule, the more sun, the better. Okay, now gently, tease this through. There we go. Now, before I firm that in, I'm going to give it a good soak. It shouldn't need any further watering unless it's extremely dry. And that's one of the great advantages of planting a vine outside, whereas if you plant it in a greenhouse or in a pot, you will need to water it regularly and also feed it regularly. Now, this is the best feed that any plant could have, which is good garden compost. So this is the first of a very generous annual mulch. but keep the mulch away from the graft so it's not actually pressing up against it because you don't want it to rot at all. Right, that's set up for life. Now, that's the first time I've planted a vine here at Longmeadow, but there's another plant that I do every year, and I tend to do the same way every year, although this time I just want to do a little bit of experimentation. Last week, I planted potatoes here in the way that I always have done, which is to dig a furrow, put them in, and then make a ridge above them. And that's always worked perfectly well, but this year I want to try an experiment. When I was in France last year, I noticed that a lot of people were growing their potatoes, in fact, nearly always Charlotte, the same one as these, in grids, not in rows, and quite close together. And they said it produced a really good crop and that was completely trouble-free. So I thought I'd try it, and now I've got the raised beds, it's that much easier because I can just get my hand in, and this loose, uncompacted soil is perfect. So an easy way of growing potatoes is simply take a seed, make a hole, pop it in. Job done. About 9 inches to a foot apart, and another one. And do this right across the area in a grid. And that's all there is to it. Now, I don't know if this is as successful as the traditional way I've always done, but I'll find out. Well, that's it for this week. Now, I'm afraid we're not here next week because it's snooker. However, we're at the Malvern show in a fortnight's time and back here in Longmeadow the week after that. So I'll see you at Malvern in a fortnight. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World, which today comes from the Malvern Spring Gardening Show. Now, Malvern is known as a plants and people show, and we'll be looking at the people behind the scenes who've worked to bring together one of the first and biggest flower shows. Well, it's lovely to be back here at Malvern. Now, Carol, what are you going to be doing? Don't tell me. You'll be checking out the ride-on mowers, heavy machinery, chainsaws.
Exactly. And while I'm at it, I'm going to be on the lookout for unusual plants, perhaps something a little bit quirky. Every year, all these hard-working nursery people bring their very best and newest plants to Malvern, and I'm going to see what I can find.
I'm going to be taking a close look at the show gardens this year and find out what's inspired the designers, and also look at some of the elements that we can all take home and use in our own gardens.
Now, I think the key thing about Malvern for me is the timing. We've all had such a miserable winter, and yet the sun has started to shine, things have started to grow, we're all getting out in the garden. So at this stage, to have a show to inspire us and provide plants we can take back to our own gardens is perfect. Yesterday, I had the chance to have a preview as the finishing touches were being made to the stands in the floral marquee. And as well as enjoying all the amazing plants on show, I was also doing a bit of window shopping for my own garden. And I found a couple here on this stand which will do the job perfectly for the writing garden. The first is Silene fimbriata, which has these bladder-like flowers, a little fringe of white. And I love the way that it's so light and airy. It needs a bit of moisture as it grows, but will take a hot, sunny position. Whereas on the other side, there's another flower, a ranunculus aconitifolius. And the buttercup flowers are white. Perfect colour, perfect type of plant. Unlike the silene, this does need cooler, moister soil. I put the ranunculus in the shade on one side of the path, and then the silene can get much more sun on the other. And I think both will adapt well. Now, this is something that I just enjoy when I visit a show, which is the bonsai. I really admire it. It involves huge skill and attracts real fanatical following. But I don't feel the need to possess it, or do it, or include it in my garden to get a lot of pleasure from seeing it at the shows. I love violas. They're an old-fashioned plant, but their charm is ageless. They have a real vibrancy and energy and freshness, and they go on and on. You can have violas flowering for about 9-10 months a year. Graham, what's the secret of getting the best from violas?
Without a doubt, grow them through to late July, early August, and then cut them fairly severely back. And then the flowers will come intermittently through the autumn and flower quite sporadically through the winter, and then the following spring they just explode.
Yeah. They do have an incredible range of colours.
They're amazing, aren't they? This one particularly, it's called Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow, because yesterday it was one colour, today it's another, tomorrow it'll be again.
The petals change colour?
Yes, they do, yes. From this lovely white through lilac, and then the deeper colour, and then they fade away.
So they work through, how extraordinary.
They're a lovely thing, they really are, they're very pretty.
Well, not only have I had the privilege of having a look around the floral marquee before the crowds come in, I've also been carefully selecting the plants that I want to take back home. But tomorrow, I'll bring my wallet and I'll buy some. When Malvern does get underway, it's clear that I'm not the only one on the lookout for that certain something.
Well, I've never seen anybody so heavily loaded. Are they all yours?
They're all the wives.
All mine.
I'm just
So
the packer.
the plants are yours and you're just the porter.
That's dead right.
Whose is this?
This is mine. This is an Epimedium amber cream.
Goes with your hair, doesn't it?
Certainly
really?
does.
Haven't you
Yes,
got
it
one?
does.
There are always a number of show gardens here at Malvern, and they're a mixed bag. Some are young designers cutting their teeth, will go on to do much bigger things, say at Chelsea or Hampton Court. Some are absolute perfect gems. And what's fascinating is you never quite know what you're going to get. And later on in the programme, Joe will be casting his professional designer's eye over them. But earlier on, there was one garden which really caught my eye, which I want to have another look at. This garden is called East Meets West, and it feels as though it could have been here for years and years.
Peter Darlton is the man behind this elegantly designed garden.
Wanted it to feel rooted in place and really use the Malverns as the perfect backdrop to the garden, and it just fitted. And the idea of going with the Japanese theme is shake, the borrowed landscape, and the whole design was just fitting into the natural surrounds that go beyond.
Now, you've called this garden East Meets West. What and where is the meeting point?
The meeting point is, I think there's For people who've been lucky enough to perhaps visit gardens in Japan, you get that tranquility and calmness, but I wanted to bring something that was very English, that you could see in any garden in the UK.
Are you getting any feedback from the public yet?
It's been very good.
Is it?
It's been very good. No, we've been absolutely delighted with feedback.
I think the judges enjoyed it too, didn't they?
Yes.
Gold medal?
Gold medal, which we were absolutely delighted with.
And even better than that, I think.
Best in show.
Well, many congratulations. That's fantastic. Now, as I'm sure Peter will endorse, preparing any show garden is a colossal amount of work. And last week, Joe went to meet one of the regulars who show here at Malvern as he prepared for his garden.
It was here on the banks of the River Severn that Malvern veteran Mark Evely first spotted the centrepiece for his latest design. Now, it wasn't this beautiful countryside that inspired him. It was a ramshackle old shed.
Mark's a carpenter by trade, but he's passionate about garden design. He's designed all kinds of show gardens, and in the last 4 years, these imaginative creations have won 2 gold medals, a silver gilt and a silver. This year, a riverside boathouse is his chosen theme.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Joe.
How's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, good. So we're surrounded by some of the most beautiful countryside in the world.
Yeah.
And you're over here looking at a load of old junk.
Well, this is where I found the old shed, which I'm using it as my boathouse at Malvern, and some other junk as well, as you can see.
Well,
here.
some lovely bicycles. Are you going to incorporate those?
Definitely.
OK, so we've got a shed that's now a boathouse. We've got some bicycles.
Yep.
What's the story behind the garden, then?
OK, well, what I'm thinking is the lady and the gent would cycle to the boathouse, and then off they'd go, get in the boat and go down the river. And unfortunately, they've moved on, they've passed away, but the garden's, you know, it's quietly carried on, and it's kind of reverting back to nature. So these are perfect. I'm not even going to clean them up. They're just so helpful. They're from 1934, which is almost the period that the garden is set in.
It sounds like a fantastic story. I'm right there. But how do you turn that story into a garden?
I'll take you to my local pub, which is where I got my inspiration for the planting. How's that? I used to come here with my granddad, and he would have a pint, and, you know, I could come and run around the back while he was sat at the front. It's got the most wonderful overgrown garden.
Most gardeners would want to come in here, so get the shears out, dig the whole thing over and almost start again.
No, don't do that. I can understand gardeners wanting to tidy it up, but that's not for me. I'm taking my inspiration from this because I want that neglected feel. This is perfect. Look, we've got primroses, green alkanet, all sorts of things, you know, good old mix.
No,
here.
it's gorgeous. I can totally see the charm. I mean, it's a fading old garden, and then plants that are just self-seeded and crept in, and weeds taking over at the same time. Is that what you're trying to create?
If you would like to call them weeds.
Well, some of them are weeds. There's nettles over
Nettles.
there. That's a weed.
Joe, I love nettles. I've got nettles in my garden this year. I've used manicured spurge that the judges would like to see because I can't have just weeds. You need some architectural plants, don't you? And it is a show garden after all. Have a look at these trays that I've made. I've planted these maybe 2 months ago, something like that. My favourite, the old stingers there. And then I've kind of drifted through, so quite naturalistic, but I've dotted the odd wallflower in, as you can see here. Pink campion, absolutely love pink campion.
I can see the sort of tapestry, the naturalistic feel with a few sort of recognisable garden plants, and the little periwinkle at the front there is gorgeous.
I love that.
It's the old show garden trick of planting them up in trays in advance and then just dropping them straight in on site. I'd like to get down and see how the garden's coming on.
OK, shall we go and have a look?
Yeah. I've got it.
Got it. Let's go.
Oh, it's heavy, isn't it?
It is heavy, yeah. Just down here by these sleepers. How's that?
Just down here? What I really love about what I see is that you've used, you know, your local plants. You're a local lad. You know what's around you, and you've brought it all together with a story in a garden.
I'm very passionate about the Malvern Hills, which are just behind us. Huge. I've been walking up on those hills all my life. You know, and you'll see hawthorn, digitalis, spurge in the woods up there. So I've tried to recreate some of that within this old driftwoody, naturalistic garden. That's what I'm hoping everyone will get when they see this old shed.
Well, you've got a way to go.
Yeah.
Lots to do. I'm going to leave you to it. Good
Okay.
luck.
Cheers, Jake.
Nice one.
Thank you.
And here I am on the finished garden, and it looks absolutely fantastic. All the plants are overgrown, feels like it's slightly neglected. The way the plants go into the boathouse here, it just feels like it's been here forever. But where's the bicycles? Mark!
Hello.
Mark, where are the bicycles? The bicycles that we carried over here.
Right, I did try it against that post there, that lovely oak post, but I thought it was just too overpowering. It was detracting from the boat. Is that the pub?
Is it? Oh.
Which is where I was last night.
I bet you were.
So I'm a bit ropey.
Celebrating your silver gilt.
Silver gilt, yeah, chuffed with that.
Well done.
Cheers.
Lovely garden.
Cheers, thank you.
Well done.
Cheers.
Paul, you created a wonderful garden here. I love the big backdrop. It makes it very dramatic, but also keeps the focus within the garden. Yeah. This stone is gorgeous. Is it from Cornwall?
It is. It's from a small quarry outside Tintagel called Trecarn, and the colour in it is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And we took a visit down there and picked all the stone out. There's about 30 tonnes altogether, and it's been beautiful to work with. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It really adds the character, doesn't it? And the walls where it's sort of slightly is that sort of herringbone size? It's got a name?
Yeah, they actually call that Jack and Jill. Right. That's what they call it down in Cornwall. And it's literally the way that it's laid. If it's frosted or damaged at all, it literally gets tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
So it's like a dry stone wall, but it's got so much strength in it.
And it just lasts forever.
It lasts forever. Apparently, these walls have been going on for 5,000 years.
Really?
So it's not bad. Yeah.
And the planting here is very subtropical, isn't it? It's a very protected climate. But with the wind, I do feel like I'm in Cornwall. You've got
right.
Cordylines and tree ferns and even agaves and plants like that too.
It was to literally follow the planting from Trebar Garden down in Cornwall, where the inspiration came from. And we're just trying to bring a little bit of slice of Cornwall up to the Malvern show, and I hope we've sort of done that.
Light is the Load is a garden with exceptional build quality, and it's causing quite a stir. The well-proportioned boundaries of stone and green walls are a really good example of how to combine soft and hard landscaping together. The living wall is beautifully planted, but it is quite costly. However, you could achieve a similar look in your garden with a simple combination of climbers. I think the light-coloured stone is an ideal surface to brighten up a shady garden, while the many varieties of euphorbia drifted through the planting make an excellent foil for the more vibrant flowers alongside. A well-deserved gold medal.
Oh, bonjour, monsieur.
Hello.
Bonjour. I thought I'd find you here somehow.
I was just sitting with my eyes closed, and I'll tell you what, you really could be in Provence.
You could.
This is an extraordinary vacation.
It's beautifully done, isn't it? I mean, the detail is just wonderful. The plant choice is spot on.
You know France. I know France.
Yeah.
This is pretty damn accurate, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is supposed to be, I think, it's one of those sort of little resting points on a Tour de France at the top of a mountain in the 1950s. You can imagine these guys cycling up, stopping, having a glass of wine, and then going on as cycling up. It gets that Provençal feel.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
Yeah. The choice of plants here, are so authentic. The olives and the convolvulus and the lavenders and stuff. And even these pots. I love the way that, the herbs, really, you can almost feel the sun baking on them. They love well-drained soil. They can be left for months in the summer without, too much water. Well, you can go on holiday and come back and they'll still be alive.
I think the other thing is that what I get from this is you can treat your garden as a bit of theatre.
Yeah.
And if you want to make, the things that inspire you and have got happy memories, then it's the details, it's the touches that count.
Yeah.
Though the show gardens are delightful, for me the whole point about the Malvern show is finding all these wonderful plants. Now, a few weeks ago, we went to visit a small nursery in Devon and meet a man who's absolutely passionate about a particular sort of primula.
Primula sowing I found in the wild around Japan and parts of Asia around there. And I just love the simplicity of them. This is actually the first time we're going to be in the marquee at Malvern. The public tend to respond very well to the sowing when they see it, so we're looking forward to going out to a wider audience. The Japanese, with their love of plants, are the ones that have made the sowing into the variety it is today. It's identified in the earliest gardening books in Japan, so it's an old and established plant form. There's a Japanese short poem, or haiku, and it translates along the lines of, "Even grasses have cherry blossom flowers in Japan, the land of the cherry blossom." The Japanese gods used to cultivate these most beautiful gardens with the wonderful cherry trees that bloomed over the streams and the lakes. But unfortunately, the blossom tended to fall too quickly, and the gods were so upset after all their efforts that it was such a short blooming that they decreed that in future, when the blossom fell, it would come up back through the grass and the grasses would flower. And it happened to be a little primula down there when they decreed this, and that then formed the Primula sowing. It's such a wonderful plant. The blooms are so nice, and there's such a nice variation in them. It's typical of many of the plants the Japanese like to grow. They will look for the variety. Primulas generally are quite good for that because they're quite promiscuous, they're quite variable. But the sowing in particular, the range of colours goes from a deep magenta, deep pink, through the blue shades up to the pure whites like this. And because they feel almost pastel-y in colour, you can actually put any different varieties together and they will look as if they're suited and complement each other. In the wild, the closest form we have here is Sumisa magenji, and it is the closest you can get, as far as I'm aware, to the wild form. We found that they will grow in reasonable levels of sunlight, but they've got to have a cool root run. They've got to be in quite nice organic soil that never dries out fully, but then doesn't flood either. We've also tried it in semi-woodland, edge of woodland conditions, which again they thrive in because they love the leaf mould, and they do well, but obviously you need a bit of light for the flowers to come out. Very popular form is, this one is called Snowflake. It looks really delicate, but actually they are very reliable. They're quite happy in our soils, our conditions. They normally will come into flower in mid to late February, and you'll have them in flower to about mid to end of June. Don't be deceived by the fact that they look so delicate. They are really quite forgiving, and if you put them in the right place, they will reward you for years. We'll always be nervous when we're trying to put on an exhibit because the primulas can be, they're not fussy, it's just that they grow according to their own desires and their own speed. You can't force primulas along, you can't put them in a warm house to speed them up because that will just kill them. So we have to go with nature on it. We just hope that there'll be enough in flower for Malvern that we can put on a good display.
Well, I have to say, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely exquisite. But how did you get on?
We got silver gilt. I'm really pleased with that. The weather hasn't been helpful to us, but I think it's come out nice. We like it.
And what's people's reaction to seeing so many sowing all together?
I think they've been impressed. I think the main message we have to keep giving is that actually they might look delicate, but they are very good garden plants.
Yeah. And I suppose the best thing is that everybody can grow them.
They can, yes. It's a nice, friendly plant.
I along the plant avenues or in here in this wonderful marquee, the whole of the Malvern show is packed with plants. All plants are special, but occasionally you come face to face with something that you've never seen before. The Malvern Hills are blue at the moment, alive with bluebells, but not this bluebell. This is a very special one. It's the bracteate bluebell. So called because it's got these wonderful sort of whiskery growths that separate these brilliant blue flowers. It's such a graceful, gorgeous plant and so unusual too. And it's the very first time that it's been seen in a British flower show. It's its first public outing. It's the sort of plant that you can't increase rapidly like ordinary bluebells because it's sterile. So each of these plants has been grown individually from side bulbs. It's such a special plant that it's the sort of thing that you'd want to put into a secret corner of your garden and go there occasionally to commune with it. Just as the trees are coming into leaf, it's a time when woodland plants are at their very best. Now, most of us have got a bit of shade in our gardens, and these plants are ideal in that kind of situation. And there's one here that is just so beautiful. It's Cornus canadensis, so called because it's from Canada, where it carpets woodland. It's a very easy plant to grow, providing you've got slightly acidic conditions. And we have lots of native shade-loving plants. And all of them are beautiful, but nothing is more special than this lovely Melissa mellifluum, otherwise known as bastard balm. I don't know what it is that draws you to it. It's a quiet plant. Perhaps it's these lovely, soft, fresh green leaves, each one sheltering a beautiful white flower. They all have sticky out pink tongues too, that adds to the charm. Our native wood anemone, Anemone nemorosa, often produces all sorts of quirky variations, but none more quirky than this. This is Anemone nemorosa bracteata pleniflora, and in its centre, lots of the petals are turned into these glorious, delicate little bright green bracts. The whole thing's got the appearance of a sort of green and white powder puff. It's charming. Whatever kind of plants you're looking for, whatever your garden's like, Malvern Show is packed with all sorts of wondrous things. And I know that my car boot's not going to be nearly big enough.
Now, obviously, it's wonderful to get out and get inspiration at flower shows, but still, the garden at home needs looking after. And here are some jobs that I was doing at Longmeadow earlier this week. As the flowers develop on your strawberry plants, it's a good idea to cover some of them with cloches. Leave the ends open so the bees can get in. But once they're covered, this will encourage the development and ripening of fruits. And you'll get a staggered fruit production rather than just one big glut in midsummer. You can't beat the flavour of homegrown sweet corn, and now is the time to sow them. I sow one seed to a module and then pot these on in a few weeks' time. These are plants that need warmth from the moment you sow them to harvest. Put them under cover to germinate and wait till the nights have warmed up before you plant them out. It's really important to harden off any plants that have been raised under cover, and that includes garden centre plants. A cold frame is ideal for this. But if you don't have one, a sheltered corner will do the job. Then, when they've acclimatised after 1 or 2 weeks, they can be moved to their final position. Well, I couldn't resist buying my white robin and ranunculus, and these will go into the writing garden when I get home. And I should be bringing back a lot of inspiration from this year's Malvern too, and I hope to see you back again at Longmeadow next week. Till then, bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. I'm just planting this Lychnis floss cuculi, the white robin, and already it's mixing in. Floss cuculi means cuckoo flower. It flowers when the cuckoo calls. And I've heard the cuckoo circling around Longmeadow most days this week. And of course, this time of year, which is my favourite, it's got to be the best moment in the year, is so rich with flowers and leaf and birdsong, and it's growing and unfurling almost by the hour. Everything's looking fantastic, and yet there's so much more to come. On tonight's show, Carol is celebrating one of the most spectacular and colourful trees of spring.
Magnolias are amongst the most ancient flowering trees on the planet. Palest pinks, deep magenta, immaculate white. These magnificent flowers announce that spring has well and truly arrived.
Rachel takes a trip down memory lane with her mother and revisits a garden that made a lasting impression on her.
This says Cokenhof to me. This is exactly what I remember, these big single blocks of colour.
And I shall be adding some kale to the vegetable garden in 2 very different ways, as well as planting clematis in the cottage garden. Come on. Come on. You can come up too. I suppose the garden has changed more in the last 2 or 3 weeks than at any other stage in the year. I mean, the obvious thing is that all the hedges are now in leaf. This new, shining foliage changes the backdrop to everything, and suddenly the whole garden comes alive. But individually, the areas are having whole waves of new plants and a new feel. So in the copse, you have the bluebells and the narcissi, and they'll be overtaken in turn. And the jewel garden, obviously the tulips give most colour, but I love the electric lime green of the euphorbias. And then the spring garden, the cow parsley, which is just at that point where it's standing tall, but soon it's going to become like a great wave submerging the whole garden. Probably my favourite moment in the whole year. Now, it's important to stop and enjoy this and appreciate it, but there are jobs to be done, aren't there, Nige? Come on, off my lap, you lump. Come on, you've got to move. You don't want to, do you? You can't stay there all day. Come on.
Get your hat
Go on.
and get your coat made. Leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet on the sunny side of the street.
Now, as part of the transformation of the vegetable garden into a cottage garden. And of course, cottage gardens include vegetables, so I'm not ditching them. I'm adding some clematis. I always feel that clematis have that loose abundance that adds a softness to any border. And of course, the cottage garden, by definition, is soft in flower. But the key thing is, you don't have to grow clematis up a wall or a fence or into a tree. You can grow them in a border. Now, I do this in a couple of ways. The easiest way is just to make a support, like this wigwam of hazel bean sticks. And of course, by planting into a border, the clematis will climb up and you've got your flowers at eye height. And it takes the eye up, it adds height, adds drama, adds architecture with all the qualities of a clematis on a wall. Now, whatever clematis you plant, and wherever you plant it, you need a decent-sized hole. And it's worth going to some trouble to do this. OK, that will do. Now, you'll see that that is actually a much bigger hole than the pot that this is contained in. So really something about 3 or 4 times as big. And that's to allow room to put in plenty of organic material, because clematis love a nice, cool, free root run and masses of food and drink. And compost and a bit of leaf mould do the job perfectly. Now, this is Clematis Viticella abundance, and I've chosen it for the sort of cherry pink because I want to try and introduce as many pinks as possible. Now, this is late flowering. It means that it will start to flower at the end of June and in July. And I'm going to bury it quite deep, which is a good rule of thumb for all clematis. The worst thing you can do to a clematis is let it dry out. They like cool, moist roots. So when you plant any clematis, give it a really good soak and then water it once a week until it's growing well or unless the ground is wet. 3 gallons of water, and it will drink every last drop. Now, I will be planting up the rest of the wigwams, but I'm also going to put some clematis just into the border. This is Clematis gerandii. It's got a fabulous, rich blue, slightly violet flowers. And because it doesn't cling, it needs something to sprawl on, and a shrub is ideal. You can grow clematis through shrubs really easily. This is Rosa complicata. And as the complicata finishes flowering, the gerandii will begin. And it's just another way of incorporating clematis into a normal flower border. Now, I'm really confident that these will be smothered in flower from July onwards. But if you want to see flower right now, none are better than magnolias. What a year it's been for them. And Carol has been to a garden with a fabulous collection.
Every year, but especially in a year like this, all gardeners are impatient for the spring. They're just dying for it to arrive. But then suddenly, magnolias burst upon the scene. Palest pinks, deep magenta, immaculate white. Magnolias are amongst the most ancient flowering trees on the planet, more than 20 million years old. And here at Marwood Hill Gardens, they're bringing the whole place to life. Dr. Jimmy Smart started to develop this 20-acre garden in North Devon in the 1950s to showcase his collection of magnificent trees. Head gardener Malcolm Farrow has promised to show me the magnolias, the highlights of the collection. And I love the way that you can just, see everywhere you walk. I mean, this valley lends itself, doesn't it?
It does. You go up the top of the hill and you can look down on the garden and there's all the magnolias planted out for you to see.
At one time, there wouldn't have been magnolias in English landscapes, were they? The first ones were American, weren't they?
The first ones came from America, from Virginia. But of course, another 100 years after that, they start discovering them in the Asiatic countries, China and up in the Himalayas.
Can you just imagine coming over the top of the mountain and seeing something like this.
Well, that's right. This is Magnolia lobneri murrel. It's a hybrid. One of the parents is stellata.
So how long's this one been here?
Well, this has been here about 50 years. In fact, it was planted by the doctor before he built the house. Right. So, being very much a plantsman, he built the house around the plant.
Yeah.
But it's such a wonderful thing, these lovely scented white flowers.
This is what you call a magnificent tree.
Well, this is the pride and joy of the garden. This is Magnolia Marwood Spring. And the parent of it came from China.
It was Ernest Wilson, wasn't it? They called him Chinese Wilson, the wonderful plant explorer who introduced most of the magnolias we know.
That's right. He went off to China and see all these provinces of China, found all these wonderful magnolias, brought them back. And this is the progeny from it. Beautiful reddish flowers as it comes out.
These wonderful trees are very large, but there are magnolias more suitable for smaller gardens. I've loved them all my life, and I've got a couple at Glebe Cottage. Well, this is my Magnolia stellata. I've always wanted one, and I planted it more than 30 years ago, soon after we came here. It's called stellata because the flowers are star-like and they fling their petals back. I love it when it's in bud too, and you anticipate all that beauty to come. One of the most common misconceptions about magnolias is that they demand acid soil. Well, providing your soil is reasonably fertile, and in most cases, most magnolias will grow. People think that you can't prune magnolias, but not a bit of it. Providing you do it during the dormant period, when the sap is as low as it possibly can be, it'll respond wonderfully the next year. Most of us associate magnolias with the spring, but there are species and cultivars that extend the season for months and months, and I'm going to plant one of them. This is Magnolia parvifolia, otherwise known as Seboldii. It has beautiful, graceful white flowers, slightly pendulous with a deep pink centre, and it flowers in the summer. I think it's going to be brilliant here. I've dug it a really good hole, nice and generous, and I've lined it with very, very rotted old muck. Ernest Wilson, who introduced so many of our very best magnolias, said of them, "No other genus of hardy or half-hardy trees can boast so many excellencies." I think that says it all.
These are brassica plants that I sowed from seed. They're now ready for planting out. In fact, these are Cavolo Nero, which I love. These are a black Tuscan kale, and you can eat them in salads when they're this size. You can let them grow big and have them in stews and soups and make fabulous pasta sauce. Really one of my favourite cabbages, because that's effectively what they are. But normally, with the whole brassica family, you plant them into soil that's been well firmed. But obviously a raised bed like this, you can't firm down. The whole point about it is that it's soft and got a really loose root run, which goes against most ways of growing any type of brassica. So I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to grow some in this raised bed and another batch in a normal bed in the conventional manner. And I'll just compare the two and see how they grow. Now, in terms of planting out, very, very simple. This is a good size. You can see that that's a nice, healthy root system in a plug, good plant like that. And all I have to do is just make a hole and pop it in. If I plant it deep and firm it in fairly well around it, that should be fine. And brassicas include cabbages, kale, cauliflowers, Brussels sprouts, turnips, and rocket. And they're all in the same family. Now you can see the spacing for this is quite close as far as cabbages go. Normally you will be looking to have double that spacing, but I want to eat these when they're young because I'll sow another batch for eating over winter. So I'm planting a grid. I'm going to let these plants only get about that big and then keep picking the leaves while they're young and tender. As well as being hungry, they're thirsty, so they will need watering fairly regularly. Right, that's the raised bed batch. Now, the second lot, I want to go into a conventional bed so I can compare the two. Now, these two beds are what you might call standard vegetable plots. So I will plant some Cavolo Nero in them the way that I normally would. The first thing to do is just rake off the soil, and they will benefit from that. The next thing to do is to firm the soil. So just walk over it. So we're firming the soil exactly as though we were laying turf, and then rake that over again. And plant into that. Now, I won't be able to use my fingers. I firmed it properly, so I need a trowel. And firm it really securely, which is very much the conventional way of growing any brassica plant. So I'll use the same spacing so we can make a decent comparison. Well, there's two different ways of planting. One in a raised bed, using the lightness and the fluffiness of the raised bed, and another where the soil has really been tamped down firmly. We'll see. We'll see which works best. Now, if you live in an area where cabbage root fly is prevalent, it's a good idea to put some sort of mat around the base of the young plants. Let's put it around that one like that. Now, these are simply cardboard squares. You can buy them. You can make them out of roofing felt, cardboard. And the whole point is the fly will come along and lay its eggs at the base of the plant. In this case, it will lay it on the cardboard, and then they should dry out and won't have a chance to go into the soil where they hatch and eat the roots of the plant. Well, that's an experiment. But you may not be planting cabbages this weekend, but here are some other things that you can be doing. It's time to plant out sweet peas. The ground should have been well dug with lots of compost added to it, and there must be some kind of support for the peas to clamber up. I sow 3 seeds to a pot and then plant the whole pot at the base of each stick. However you do it, plant them deeply and then water them in really well. And don't worry if you don't see any signs of growth for the first week or so, because the roots will be establishing from the day you put them in the ground. Biennials, such as wallflowers or foxgloves, grow their roots and foliage in their first growing season and then flower the following spring or summer. And now is the ideal time to sow many of them. This can be done outside in a seed bed just as successfully as in a greenhouse. Prepare a piece of ground by raking it to a fine tilth. Then sow the seed thinly in rows, labelling them clearly. Water them well and make sure they are kept weed-free. The best way of keeping on top of weeds in the vegetable garden is with a hoe. Try and hoe little and often, and preferably before the weeds get bad. Always hoe on a dry day so that the cut weeds can dry out and the roots won't re-establish in wet soil. Like so many things this year, the tulips are terribly late. Normally they're at their best the end of April, and here we are at the middle of May, and there's still lots to come. But their quality doesn't seem to have diminished at all as a result of the cold weather. They're still as stunning as ever. In this pot, I've got flaming parrot, which is an enormous goblet of a flower, and then Aladdin, which is lily-flowered, same colours but different shape. Just igniting the garden. And all flowers before tulips warm things up and they unfold and they've got subtlety and delight, but tulips come along and just put a match to the whole thing. And I love that burst of energy. Now, we've got lots in this garden, but absolutely nothing compared to the garden that Rachel and her mother have been to visit in Holland.
The Dutch bulb growing area just southwest of Amsterdam is a truly extraordinary sight. Right in the heart of this Technicolor wonderland is Keukenhof, the world's biggest spring garden. The garden is only open for 2 months of the year, but for that brief moment, it's truly dazzling. Wow. Well, I don't remember this at all.
Goodness, and so many people.
I first came here with my mum more than 40 years ago, and it made a lasting impression on me. And now we're retracing our steps to see if we can recapture some of that magic. Was this what you remember?
No. But then I don't remember anything anyway, as you know. You're the one who remembers. And can you remember 40 years ago?
I can remember it, but I don't remember this, because this is beautiful. Look at this.
This is lovely. This is so different, isn't it?
The ivory flowers of Tulipa turkistanica work beautifully with the pale yellow concerto tulips. And they're underplanted with blue and white smaller woodland bulbs to give a freshness that would lift any semi-shaded spot. Still can't believe it's 40 years ago. We don't look any different.
Well, I don't know. Some of us have grown one way or another.
Hey, see, this says Keukenhof to me. This is exactly what I remember, these big single blocks of colour. You certainly can't ignore it, can you? I think this was very formative for me, this visit, because I remember it so vividly. I was 9, and I remember I was just so bowled over by what I saw. When I remember Keukenhof, I remember the tulips. But now I see it's so much more than that. Not only are there breathtaking collections of narcissi, mascari, and hyacinths, there are also fantastic combinations of an even wider range of bulbs. Mum, look.
What?
Tulipa tarda.
Oh, my goodness, that's what your father loved.
That was Dad's favourite, wasn't it?
Yes, it really was.
So beautiful. Now, what do you think of this?
I think it's fantastic. It's really so beautiful and very, very simple. Just such a quantity
well,
of
it's
stuff.
just the 2 varieties. I think that's why it works, because they haven't put too much into it.
That's
but
right.
You see, you wouldn't see this anywhere else.
No.
I think it's fantastic. I'm going to take some pictures.
I tell you what, Rach, you take your pictures. I'm going off to see the orchids in that pavilion, and I'll meet you outside there.
I'll have a little wander, and about 15 minutes.
Lovely.
The combination of just these 2 tulips is so simple. The pink flowers of Flaming Purissima and the white exotic Emperor. It's so subtle, but so effective. As well as enjoying Keukenhof's sheer spectacle, I'm also looking for some ideas and inspiration that I can take back to my own garden. Andre Berg is part of a team that plants 7 million bulbs every autumn. Andre, I've been taking photos around the garden, and one thing is mystifying me, that all the flowers, I mean, these are great, big, heavy flowers.
Right.
All of them absolutely standing to attention. None of them are flopping over.
Beautiful, isn't it?
How are you doing that?
Well, that's our magic trick. By the hyacinths, we give them a little support with some iron stick.
Ah, okay.
You want to try yourself?
Yes, definitely.
You put it on the side of the hyacinths, and down there, and you go into the soil.
But not into the bulb, just
Not in the
on
bulb,
the side. Right, so the stake goes down through these flowers, down the side of the stem, and then slightly to the side of the bulb.
And that's what we do with the hyacinth. They'll stand there for 1 or 2 weeks more.
A succession of clever bulb combinations like this can give months of vibrant colour. Crocuses have already given way to mascari. Then the hyacinths come into bloom. And all this happens before they're joined by the first of a myriad of tulips. Keukenhof is pure fantasy made real. Its scale is beyond reach, but it's certainly an inspiration, come the autumn, to fill the garden with combinations of bulbs for a succession of glorious colour. I think for me the most interesting thing today has been seeing how what I like has changed. And what I remember when I was little is not necessarily what I think I'd remember now. From this visit, I've loved it. I've had a very good day.
That's good.
I guess that kind of highly controlled formality is the exact opposite of the writing garden here, which I want to appear to be as loose and as informal as possible. And to achieve that effect, I've got lots of bulbs and lots of perennials, but as yet no annuals. And some I've sown under glass and am raising and ready to plant out in a week or two, but hardy annuals, on the other hand, can be sown direct. Now, there are two ways of doing this. Either I can just broadcast the seed, which obviously is about the easiest bit of gardening you could ever do, and poppies are very well adapted to this. So you can just take the seed and cast it on the surface of your soil. Just take a handful of seed here, and this is a variety called white cloud. And bearing in mind, this is fundamentally a white garden with a little bit of pink. That's suited. Now, I've just got a few seeds, and if I sprinkle them like that, I'm not controlling where they go at all. But obviously, that random feel is exactly what I want here in this type of garden. Now, that is probably the easiest gardening anybody could do. Although I have to say that all annuals are incredibly easy. I mean, they are such an important branch of plants.
They're really useful for filling gaps. And whilst poppies need light to germinate, many other hardy annuals need to be covered over with soil. And here's a tip how best to sow them in a border amongst other plants.
First choose an area that's reasonably open, like we've got here, and just gently rake it so it's smooth and make sure there are no weeds. And in fact, we might go in there too. So we have a little runway for plants. And then make a shape which is recognizable. Now, obviously, the simplest shape is just to draw a line like that. But you could do a cross, you could make a circle. The whole point is that when these seedlings do germinate, you will see where they are, because a weed seedling doesn't grow in any prescribed or preordained shape. And whilst that may seem terribly artificial and unnatural, you then thin them and you'll be amazed at how natural they will look. And you can do this in a number of places all over the border. So, for example, I've got a white nigella here. It's called African Bride. So, very, very simply, a line like that, and we'll go off there. And of course, these will come up when the tulips are long gone. So I'm trying to think of succession coming through. Nigella has the ferny foliage and the looseness that I want in this garden. And I accept I'm not going to get it straight away. You have to work at these things. And this is where annuals come in, because you can change them. Doesn't work this year, you can try something different next year. You could make a whole garden this size entirely out of annuals for really very little money. Right, we have the seed there. So I've made my line, and I will just sow the seed in there carefully. And obviously, the thinner I do it, the less I'm going to have to thin it out, and the more locations I can put the seed in. That's probably plenty. Cover that over. Right, nigella. That will go in there. And then as the seedlings emerge, yes, they'll be competing with weed seedlings, but because they're in a straight line, I can carefully take out the ones I don't want, and then when I know they're growing nice and strongly, thin them so that they look natural. Believe me, it works. Well, that's it for this week. Bye-bye.